accordingly restrain the second and third respondents from switching off the applicant's analog frequencies.
Reprieve from media houses as court restores analog signal. And saving South Sudan, eager heads of state meet in Nairobi. Plus, old habits die hard. Rogue cops cashing in on the festive season. And veteran rally driver Baba Shiro is laid to rest in Yeri County.
This is KTN Friday Briefing with Betty Kyallo.
It's the 27th of December 2013. It's great to have you back. Just in case you were switched off, well, tonight we have comprehensive coverage of the day's events, but also to wind up the year, we have a special guest who has been with us since we started Friday Briefing. Willis Ocheng, aka Willis the Wordmaster, is in studio. Willis, great to see you.
Great to see you, Betty. How are you?
I'm doing great now that you're here. I can see already armed with a book and a pen, just like a teacher.
Betty, when it comes to matters language, a pen, a book, sometimes so that you can be taking notes, and you know, it's very important.
It's very important. I like the way you say important.
Yes.
Well, Willis will be joining you in just a short while for those insights and pronunciations. Just keep it locked.
My pleasure.
All right, Willis will be joining us in just a short while, but let's now begin our news coverage. And Kenyans can now breathe easy and watch their favorite shows on TV with peace of mind. This is after the Court of Appeal halted the digital migration process that had begun yesterday. Adelaide Changole has these details.
Better picture quality, more TV choices, better TV access, better viewing pleasure. This is just a few of the benefits the government says the move from analog to digital frequencies would afford Kenyans. But the reality has been anything but that. Instead, many Kenyans have been forced to forego watching their favorite programs entirely once the switch off was effected on the 26th of December 2013, following the ruling by the High Court dismissing a petition by KTN Citizen and NTV to delay the switch. But the media houses moved to the appellate court today, arguing that the digital migration contravenes their constitutional right to broadcast and the people's right to information, and seeking orders halting the move until after their substantive appeal was heard.
Article 33 vests in every Kenyan the constitutional freedom to receive information. The Kenyan people receive information from media houses.
However, opposing counsel argued that the court could not halt the process as it had already begun a day before the appeal was heard and therefore could not be reversed.
You cannot restrain that which is already done.
But the counsel representing the media said the decision taken by the Communication Commission of Kenya to effect the migration was taken with full cognizance of the fact that an appeal had been lodged in the appellate court and was therefore presumptive of the court decision.
The actions by the respondents to switch off consumers was unreasonable. It is against the practice of this honorable court.
You cannot preempt a court process by issuing press statements and minutes before midnight and expect to come here on Friday and say it's a fait accompli. It is not.
In its ruling, the appellate court argued that the matters raised by the three media houses presented grounds for an arguable appeal. The court therefore ordered the Ministry of Information and CCK to halt the switch off from analog to digital broadcasting for 45 days, pending a substantive appeal by the three media houses that seeks to reverse the High Court ruling last week.
And we accordingly restrain the second and third respondents from switching off the applicant's analog frequencies, broadcasting spectrums, and broadcasting services, and, if already switched off, to reinstate the same pending the hearing and determination of the intended appeal on or before the 6th February 2014. The court will now rise.
The news was well received by the council representing the media houses, who said it vindicated them.
The first thing is that the set boxes have to be priced reasonably. The prices are still very high. You remember in other countries like Tanzania, the prices are half what we are getting here.
And to some extent, we have been vindicated because, he refused to give us stay orders on the 23rd when he dismissed the petition. And we had said give us a very temporary short stay. And he didn't, but we've got those orders now from the Court of Appeal.
The appeal will be heard in appellate court from February 6th, after which a decision will be taken on the digital migration process. The government had planned to effect the migration countrywide by mid of 2014, ahead of the global deadline in June 2015. The decision by the appellate court is a welcome one for Kenyans, who will now get to watch their favorite programs at least for the next 45 days. Adelaide Changole, KTN.
Staying with that story, many television viewers in Nairobi and its environs were left in the dark after the switch off of the analog transmission as directed by the Communications Commission of Kenya. Now, while the signal has now been restored, many viewers have raised concerns over the cost of the universal set-top boxes.
Families in Nairobi and its environs were on with their usual television watching as the deadline for digital migration approached. Hours to Thursday midnight, many hoped that it was a threat far from reality. Anne Mutheu, a resident of Machakos, experienced the analog switch off. And just like many residents here, her television lost its signal as she was yet to acquire a digital decoder. Here in Nairobi, this family in Kawangware woke up to no signal on the television set. This family says they are not in a position to buy a set-top box as it was not in their budget, but had to look for options to continue entertaining themselves this festive season. They opted to watch DVD movies instead. A spot check across various households indicates more Kenyans are yet to purchase the digital set-top boxes, with many saying it is beyond their reach, and that it came at a time when families have various financial commitments associated with the festive season and reopening of schools.
Hiyo pesa ya kununua decoder unafikiria kupeleka watoto nyumbani nini shuleni Januari, niko na candidate mtoto form 4. Nafikiria kumlipia fees ama nifikiria kununua vitu kama hizo decoder.
Niko na school fees, niko na rent ya kulipa, niko na foodstuffs kununua. Sina pesa nyingine ya kununua set box at the moment. Na nikifuata nini budget yangu, hiyo set box inaniwestia money.
Meanwhile, authorized dealers here in Nairobi were cashing in on the sale of set-top boxes as customers flocked their shops. Dealers say many buyers prefer this free-to-air set-top box that costs 5,500 shillings but has no monthly subscription fee. The switch-off is part of the country's move to a digital platform, a switchover that has had its fair share of problems. Most television sets in Kenya are designed to receive analog signals, and TV owners will now need to acquire set-top boxes to transmit the digital frequencies. There has been concern over the price of boxes, which even with a waiver of excess duty are still expensive for consumers. The STBs range anywhere between 4,000 shillings and 8,000 shillings. Viewers now have a reprieve of 45 days following the court ruling that ordered the suspension of analog transmission switch off. Angel Katusia, KTN.
Now, the government of South Sudan has agreed to end the bloodshed in the nation and negotiate for peace with the rebel group. At a special IGAD summit at State House, Nairobi, South Sudan agreed to resolutions promoting dialogue between President Salva Kiir and his rival Riek Machar. KTN's Ashimulu has these details.
Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Uganda, Djibouti, Sudan, and South Sudan, all under one roof. The agenda to resolve the crisis in South Sudan that is threatening the region's stability.
We have no time. If the present violence continues, and the violence on the ground leads to atrocities against civilians, it will create global dynamics that make it much more difficult for South Sudan and the region to reach a solution.
The 3-hour-long meeting at the IGAD summit in Nairobi ended with the adoption of 7 key resolutions to guide a possible mediation process in South Sudan. President Kiir's government, represented by his Foreign Affairs Minister, committed to calling a truce with Riek Machar, who is leading the rebels.
The stakeholders in the Republic of South Sudan welcomed, number one, the commitment by the government of the Republic of the South Sudan on immediately beginning unconditional dialogue with all stakeholders. If hostilities do not cease within 4 days of this communique, the summit will consider taking further measures.
But even with this strong resolve, sources within the meeting say the process will not be a walk in the park. While President Kiir says he is ready for dialogue, Riek Machar says his political detainees will have to be released before any talks can commence. A compromise that President Kiir is reportedly not willing to make.
Face-to-face talks by all stakeholders in the conflict should occur by the 31st of December 2013.
While IGAD deliberated on peace solutions for South Sudan, the United Nations was taking a tough stance on protecting civilians in the crisis-hit nation.
All peacekeepers are under the instruction to use force when civilians are under imminent threat within their capabilities. And that is an instruction that also is there for those who are protecting our camps and the civilians seeking refuge there.
In the meantime, foreign nations are still evacuating their nationals from Juba. More than 300 Kenyans were brought home to safety on Friday from the worst-hit areas, Bor and Bentiu. More than 120,000 people have been displaced in the South Sudan flare-up, with 63,000 currently living in UN camps. Even as the region intensifies its efforts to unblock the crisis in the youngest nation in the world, South Sudan, it is still unclear whether the two main protagonists, President Kiir and Riek Machar, will agree to the resolutions met here. But for the hundreds of thousands of people caught up in the fighting, all they can do is hope and wait. Asha Mwilu, KTN, Nairobi.
On to some news just in, and it is about Francis Muthaura, and he has just bounced back. And news reports getting to us now say former head of public service ambassador or Francis Muthaura is back in government. Muthaura is the new chairman of the Lapsset Corridor Development Authority with effect from January 2014. Muthaura's appointment is contained in a special Gazette notice dated today. In the Gazette notice, President Uhuru Kenyatta has appointed 26 heads of parastatals. Among those appointed include former MPs and retired civil servants. Former Marakwet East MP Lina Kilimo will now head the Anti-Female Genital Mutilation Board for a term of 3 years starting next month. Also, bouncing back into the limelight is former Kibwezi MP Agnes Ndetei, who will chair the National Drought Management Authority Board. Now, Professor Philip Kaloki, a former MP from the same constituency who unsuccessfully vied for governorship of Makueni County in the March 4th elections, will now head the Kenya Medical Training College Board. Those are the details that are getting to us right now. But remember, you can get all those details on your copy of the Standard newspaper tomorrow. The Standard on Saturday has those details of this news that has just reached to us right now. You can get all those details of this new appointments tomorrow on the Standard newspaper, and you will be able to get all that information that we have just given to you. Now, messages of road safety have flooded all media this holiday season, and with good reason. Over 3,000 people have died this year from road carnage. There is, however, a section of traffic police officers who are fanning the flames by letting rogue drivers or even unroadworthy vehicles go scot-free. KTN's Edith Kimani has the full details.
Along the busy Nairobi-Nakuru highway, buses compete for space. It is peak season for these transporters and they are prepared for anything, even the regular police check near Salga area. This bus, like many others, is stopped. The traffic police officer engages the conductor in some kind of negotiation. The conductor exits the bus and then an exchange. The bus is briskly sent off. The queue of waiting buses is growing longer. As the traffic officers in Salga fill their pockets, their colleagues in Nairobi and Nakuru are working overtime to ensure intoxicated drivers do not get onto the road. Efforts that may be going to waste if drivers that are not compliant with traffic rules can simply buy their way onto the roads.
We are going to prevent all buses which will be traveling at night. We will not see accidents happening at night because there will be no vehicles to cause those accidents. So that is what happened during Michuki.
Despite the tough talk, buses have received temporary TLB licenses that allow them to ply new and long routes to meet the demands over the holidays. The Nakuru highway is filled with these buses, which are ordinarily restricted to shorter routes in cities. It is these same buses on unfamiliar roads that are being stopped and when found on the wrong side of the road, negotiate their way back to the highway. Edith Kimani, KTN.
The Big Q.
Well, that story leads us to a big question tonight, and we ask, do you think it is possible to eliminate corruption from the police force? Do you think it is possible to eliminate corruption from the police force? That is our big question tonight. Send your yes or no response with a brief comment to the number 22155. That's 22155. You can tweet me at Betty Kyallo or at KTN Kenya, and we will sample your views during this newscast. To some politics now, and leaders of the CORD coalition have criticized the government for neglecting its citizens. CORD was in Nyaribari Chache pitching for its candidate Chris Bichange for the December 30th by-election.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Senate Minority Leader Moses Wetangula claimed that the Jubilee government has ignored ordinary Kenyans since it took power. The two, who were accompanied by several CORD leaders, decried the high cost of living in the country, saying President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto are going against their campaign pledges of creating jobs for jobless Kenyans.
Munaona vile nchi na yumba yumba. Hakuna serikali yenye inajua na ina mwelekeo inaweza kuamua tu na kuamka asubuhi na kuzimisha TV ya wananchi. Na kusema hata ukiwa na KTV kako ka black and white utalipia kila mwezi. Bei ya vitu ndiyo hiyo. Wao wenyewe wakiamka asubuhi ICC, mchana ICC, jioni ICC. Mpaka tumekosa kuzungumzia mambo mengine ya nchi yetu.
Speaking in Nyaribari Chache constituency, where they drummed up support for former MP Chris Bichange ahead of the Monday by-election, they regretted that the Jubilee government is insensitive to the high cost of basic commodities, adding that the VAT bill is negatively affecting millions of poor Kenyans. The CORD leaders say the Jubilee leaders campaigned on the platform of job creation, adding that it was sad that the government plans to retrench 100,000 civil servants next year in contradiction of their pledges.
Alafu walisema ati kila mahali ambayo imeandikwa hakuna kazi watabadilisha itaandikwa kuna kazi. So walisema namna hiyo. Lakini juzi wametangaza kuanzia mwezi ujao Januari wataachisha kazi.
Pitching for the CORD coalition's candidate, the coalition leadership beseeched Nyaribari Chache constituents to re-elect Bichange, whose election was nullified by the court. On CORD's crosshairs was the judiciary for what was termed as targeting CORD elected members.
Sio Chris peke yake. Ni Raila vile vile unapiga kura. Ukipiga Chris, unapiga Raila. Wanake wale jamaa wanasema tu unaona nguvu ya Raila inaanza kufifia kule Kisii, na watu yake wanashindwa sasa na watu wa Jubilee. Si itakuwa ni aibu kubwa?
walitumia mahakama kutuhujumu, na mahakama kubwa zaidi kuliko ile mahakama ambayo inafanya ufisadi ni nyinyi wananchi.
The code brigade in the campaign trail included senators and National Assembly members. Bichange is facing 8 other contenders for the Nyaribari Chache parliamentary seat. They are Richard Tongi of Ford People, Kanus Kennedy Omanga, and Ben Mogaka of Kenya Social Congress. Others are TNS Robert Monda, Raila Tunda of NARC Kenya, Jared Orasa of Kenya National Congress, James Kenani of National Labour Party, and Zachary Marwa of National Vision Party. Samugina, KTN.
Now, police officers acting on a tip-off today raided several marijuana plantations in Nyatike constituency, Migori County. The illegal plant cultivated on 9 parcels of land were hidden within maize crops and was such a well-guarded secret even some residents of the same village did not know they ever existed. KTN's Fredo Mulo was at the scene and gives us this story.
Deep in Nyatike's Kanyarwanda sub-location, a few unscrupulous farmers have been growing an illegal crop on several parcels of land totaling 10 acres. The cannabis plantations, some hidden and some in plain view, are estimated to hold crops worth almost 50 million shillings.
The local police are very far, and if you see the area, unless there is an incident reported, it is very difficult for people to come on patrol to this side. But for the local, even Christian, because I believe we have Christians in this area, I think they ought to have said. So maybe they are part and parcel of this.
Residents of the remote village that is located on the Kenya-Tanzania border were so aloof to the illegal activity, they didn't notice a thing. In this far-flung land, police patrols are extremely rare and the local provincial administration hardly has the capacity to penetrate the harsh terrain in search of criminals.
We need is now to intensify patrols within this area now. Especially we have seen at the bed of the rivers. So we shall try, even the whole of the county, we shall try to have the OCPD and the station commanders doing the patrols to see whether there are other areas being drawn.
Police spent more than 12 hours uprooting the stems and arrested 6 suspects who will be arraigned in court on Monday. They had to reinforce their team with 100 inmates who helped pack 5 police lorries with the precious cargo. Despite all the checks and balances that have been put in place to deter cultivation of this plant, the insatiable appetite of Kenyans for the recreational drug is so immense that ordinary farmers in this marginalized land are ready to take the risk. From Nyatike in Migori County, I am Fredo Mulo.
Now, in the spirit of Christmas and the festive season, followers of the African traditional religion gathered around Mount Kenya today for prayers. Dressed in cultural attire, faithful from the Luo, Mijikenda, Kikuyu, Embu and Meru communities gathered at the foot of Mount Kenya for prayers as a symbol of togetherness. Traditionally, the communities living around Mount Kenya believe that God lives in the mountain, hence the choice of the location. The worshippers walked around the mountain 7 times in an anti-clockwise direction with stopovers to pray as was done traditionally. They prayed for peace and unity both in Kenya and neighboring South Sudan.
The Big Q.
Right, we're just about to take a short commercial break, but before then, let's remind you of our big question tonight. And we had asked, do you think it's possible to eliminate corruption from the police force? Do you think it's possible to eliminate corruption from the police force? The number is 22155. You can send us a brief comment to that number. You can also tweet me at Betty Kyallo or at KTN Kenya, and I'll be glad to sample your views. Right, let's take that break. When we come back, Willis, the word master, will be seated with me and we'll know how to pronounce some more words. Just ahead, a day with Muhangala, the Kakamega bullfighting champion.
Na hii bendera nilibatiwa ya kuonyesha ya kusema uhuru ni ya Kenya. Nisiogope nikisema lolote na niseme mambo ya haki.
You are watching KTN Friday Briefing.
Rise, with imports from Uganda and Tanzania expected to bridge the deficit during the period.
According to a report by the Food and Agricultural Organization and the Ministry of Agriculture, the overall stock available would be able to carry the country to May 2014. The report highlights that maize production is likely to drop from 36 million bags last year to 24 million bags, highlighting the crisis with production likely to drop by 40%. At the same time, the report notes that maize imports from Tanzania and Uganda between May and June 2014 could cushion Kenya's shortage, providing an estimated 6 million bags, biding time until harvest from the South Rift is achieved. Maize is Kenya's staple dish in many households, and any shortage affects the country's efforts to improve its food security programs. The report estimates that both national and county levels, the country will have about 28 million bags by March 2014. With a population of about 40 million Kenyans, maize consumption stands at 3.72 million bags per month. FAO and the Ministry of Agriculture, however, observed that since during maize shortage, other food crops including rice, sorghum, sweet potatoes, bananas provide support to households. No food shortage is expected. FAO proposes that the National Cereals and Produce Board be actively involved in the distribution of subsidized fertilizer to small-scale farmers between January and May 2014 to improve chances of a bumper harvest. Michael Karanja, KTN Business.
Now, the remedy to Kenya's large current account deficit does not appear to be in sight, with the deficit rising steadily in the third quarter of 2013. Well, this comes as the gap between the country's imports and exports continue to widen. According to Kenya National Bureau of Statistics Q3 data, Kenya's exports declined by 3.9%, totaling 123.6 billion shillings against 128.6 billion shillings in 2012. The decline is partly explained by slow growth in the agricultural sector that dropped to 3.4% in the third quarter. This has led to immense pressure being heaped on the balance of payments, even as merchandise trade felt that the heat due to slow economic growth. Imports recorded a marginal increase of 2.7% to 356.2 billion shillings. The decline in key exports such as coffee and tea is also a worrying trend, with erratic weather likely to heap more pressure on exports. Already, Kenya looks poised to miss its economic growth target of 5% for the year, as KNBS data indicated that the economy only grew by 4.4% in Q3 and by 4.6% cumulatively during the year. Now, with the ongoing unrest in South Sudan, the KCB group says it will continue offering financial services in the country. Now, in a statement sent to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, the bank says it is, however, consolidating its operations in the country to offer banking services. Banking services will be offered in upcountry branches in Juba, where relative calm prevails. The bank is among a number of Kenyan businesses that have been affected by the ongoing unrest that erupted earlier on in the month. Let's now have a financial markets review.
The Financial Report. The Financial Report.
Good evening and a warm welcome to another action-packed edition of KTN Sports today. I'm Lynn Washira, and straight to the sports news. He may have lost his long battle with cancer a week ago, but Kenyan veteran rally driver Ben Mushemi's legacy will live on. Mushemi was laid to rest today in his home village of Kianjogu in Nyeri County. Kenyan veteran rally driver Ben Mushemi was laid to rest in Kianjogu village, Nyeri County. Popularly known to many as Baba Shiro, Mushemi passed on late last week after a long battle with stomach cancer dating back to the year 2008. Mushemi has been an inspiration to many rally drivers due to his courage on the wheels despite his health condition. He first took part in the National Safari Rally in 2005, driving a Subaru Impreza, and won the Most Improved Driver trophy the following year. He never shied away from helping less privileged drivers, whom he would offer some of his rally cars during competitions. His love to impact others saw him open the Kenya Rally School to train inspiring rally drivers. He succeeded by his wife Anastasia Wairimu and 8 children.
I promise to stand like a tree planted by the rivers of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaves does not wither, and whatever I do shall prosper. Goodbye, my love.
He was and still is my best friend to date, and I will miss him dearly.
In Kianjogu, where he was buried, 3 of his rally cars were put on show for the public, with most of the people who witnessed his final journey describing him as a legend.
A man who leaves behind a legacy that many of us would envy.
Until his death, Mushemi was the Sports Stadium Management Board Chairman as well as Rally Sports Club Chairman. And may his soul rest in peace. And moving on, the 31st edition of the annual Kothbiro tournament took the center stage today at the Kariokor grounds here in Nairobi, with the organizers urging more stakeholders to aid talented soccer lovers. The Kothbiro tournament is aimed at curbing and nurturing talent, and some big soccer names sharpened their skills in Kariokor.
As the 2013 calendar wraps up, soccer enthusiasts in parts of the city had all reason to be part of the annual Kothbiro tournament at the Kariokor grounds. The tournament has a rich background with notable soccer gurus in the country having been spotted here.
Kothbiro hii imezaa Mariga hapa, imetoa Jamal Mohamed hapa, wamecheza kuna Idi, niko sahi Belgium, hapa Pamzo, James Nando, Bobogola, wote wamecheza hii tournament.
Tuleta vijana hapa kwa expose ndio wapate uzoefu.
With its rich history, the tournament's status is wanting, financial constraint being the biggest hurdle. Kothbiro Organizing Committee, however, feels sidelined by the Nairobi governor, urging his government to be part of the nurturing talent around the city.
Hizi kaunti zingine kuna matournament za magavana, lakini Nairobi hakuna tournament za magavana. Aibu.
Viongozi wetu wa mpira nafaa wajaribu vile wawezavyo, waje mashinani, wajionee wenyewe mashinani kuna talent.
With the festivities, the Kothbiro tournament gives the youth a positive activity and aids them in positive living.
Sahi ni wakati wa likizo, watu wengi wako home, mavijana wanajua avoid kwa drugs hivi.
Na hapa vijana wadogo wakicheza na watu kama kina Kevin Omondi, kina Musa Mohamed, kwa nafalia hapa, anafurahi na anakuwa na moral kucheza juu na brush shoulder na mama star.
Sports lovers in Nairobi County are having a merry and sporty festivities. With an aim of curbing and nurturing talent, the organizers of Kothbiro tournament are willing and able to tackle any challenge and ensure that their aim and dream get to be achieved. Moses Wahisi at Kariokor, Nairobi.
The Big Q.
And we hope to have many great moments next year. You need to stay tuned to KTN. Of course, Friday Briefing will be bigger and better. It's a cliche, but trust me, I'm very serious on that. Let's now have a reminder of our big question tonight. And we had asked you, do you think it's possible to eliminate corruption from the police force? Do you think it's possible to eliminate corruption from the police force? Thank you very much for your response. 35% say yes and 65% say no. They do not think that corruption can be eliminated from the police force.
Information right at your fingertips. Dial *551# Kenya Power.
Well, we're just about to wind up KTN Friday Briefing. Willis, I don't know, we've seen Befoli Wakoli. We've had such a great start this year.
Well, I think we have the gift of the gab. There is the innate talent and all that. But Wakoli Befoli really tried. He really tried.
He really tried.
He tried.
He gave it his all with a Guinea was a cow. All right, so now, before you wind up, there are two words that I need you some clarification on. Okay. Oyunga Pala is asking, do you say tomato or tomato?
Betty, I'm talking about the British English pronunciation in this case.
Yes.
When you talk about American pronunciation, you'll hear of tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the RP or the English pronunciation, we say toma, ma, a long vowel which is a front low vowel tomato.
Okay.
Then we say potato. The words look alike, but we don't say potato, we say potato.
Yes.
But when it comes to tomato, we don't say tomato.
Okay.
Very, very, very confusing.
All right. And do we say total or total? There's a confusion, some confusion there.
Yes, or you are talking now about what we call if I may remember well, we are having what we call the homographs. Homographs are words which are spelled the same way but pronounced differently with different meanings.
Okay.
For instance, the word minute.
Okay.
I want to see you this minute.
Okay.
Then, very tiny, same spelling, we now say minute.
Yes.
You get that?
Yes.
Now, when we come to the word total, as an adjective, we say total.
Yes.
But when we are referring to the name of a petroleum company, we don't say total. We say total.
Total. All right.
Yes.
Willis, it has been such a pleasure having you on Friday Briefing, and of course for the 4 months that we have been on air. Thank you very much for your dedication and your commitment and your time. Thank you very much. We really do appreciate you.
Betty, it's my pleasure. And, sometimes working together with an authoritative station like KTN, it makes me feel great too.
Oh, definitely.
So I also say thumbs up, not thumbs. Thumbs. Thumbs up, KTN.
Thumbs up, KTN. Thank you very much. Well, that's it for this year's edition of KTN Friday Briefing. Thank you so much for tuning in every Friday. Really do appreciate it. My name is Betty Kyallo. See you again next year.
And I'm Willie Socheng, just reminding you, nobody, not even myself, can be totally perfect. And what is important? Are you communicating? More important. See you next year.
See you next year. Good night.